Hello, welcome to Four Wheels and a Seat. My name's Alex Dalrymple and you found your way to my channel where I review brand new cars every week. You want to make sure you don't miss one though, you better hit subscribe and the notification bell, as well as give me a like if you enjoy the video. Thanks very much. It used to be the best-selling small car in Australia, but its crown has slipped and it now sits at number 3. But is the Mazda 3 worth the extra cash? Let's find out. This fourth generation Mazda 3 is now about 4 years old and probably due for a midlife update. Look, I'm just going to come out and say it. I really prefer the look of the sedan over the hatch. I think the sedan is one of the best looking small cars on the road, and the hatch, I don't know, it looks a bit strange. I'll tell you why in a minute. Unlike its cheaper rival, the Hyundai i30, which is actually made up of two entirely different cars for the sedan and hatch, the Mazda 3 looks pretty much the same from the front, and it is a really good looking car. I like the headlight cluster design. I don't really like the fact that halogens are used as the daytime running lights. That's a little bit old school. Surely LEDs don't cost that much more. And this car does look a lot more premium in black than its actual spec sheet suggests. But I think it's side on where the hatch gets let down by its design, especially back at the C-pillar with this big sheet of formless metal with no creases, nothing to really make it stand out, I think. And look, to be honest, it's a massive blind spot as well. To me, it just looks a little bit like a 1970s Mazda 323, but I mean, that was probably intentional. This car, being a mid-spec G20 Evolve, gets 18-inch dark grey alloys. The back of the Mazda 3 hatch does look good though. I like the light clusters with the pulsating indicator lights. The boot, unlike a few other Mazdas though, is a bit on the small side at just 295 litres. Under the bonnet sits a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine that outputs 114 kilowatts of power and 200 newton meters of torque. Power goes to the front wheels only via a 6-speed automatic transmission, and fuel economy clocks in at an average of 5.9 litres per 100 kilometres on a combined cycle. There is a larger 2.5 litre engine available for more money, and that obviously goes a bit quicker. But that's not to say that there's anything wrong with this 2-litre engine. For around town, it is perfectly adequate and you never feel that there is not enough power. But it's the interior that really sets the Mazda 3 apart from its other small car rivals. Unlike a lot of them, there's not nearly as much hard plastic going around. We've got a lot more of the soft stuff up here on top, and the design is just gorgeous. It looks really nice and quite premium. This car, being a mid-spec Evolve, gets a slightly larger center console screen. It's 10.25 inches and it's pretty good. Like, the picture is nice and sharp. It's got great contrast. There's wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, native navigation. The one thing that does make it a little bit different though to other Mazda systems I've used is that this one seems to be purely operated by the jog wheel and does not have any touch function. Now look, I'm sure I'm probably going to get someone in the comments going, oh well, if you'd just done your research and gone into the menus, you'd find that there is an option to turn that on. I'm sure there is. I've looked for it, I can't find it. And you know what, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty easy to use it that way, and the screen itself is set so far back on the dashboard that it's actually not really ergonomically comfortable to reach forward to touch it anyway, and you know what, it's probably safer that way. So pretty much all the functionality works through the jog wheel. The only issue with that really is that using the native navigation to search for destinations is a little bit of a chore. You've got to kind of spin the wheel around to select individual letters, and that's a little bit annoying. Climate controls under that, pretty simple, straightforward to use. Really nice, sleek design actually. None of it runs through the center console screen, which is refreshing for a car these days. We've got storage for your phone, which I imagine in higher spec models would be where the wireless phone charging is, but we don't get that here unfortunately. A couple of cup holders. The lower console though is a bit of a sea of piano black, which in this car is already a little bit scratched, which is a shame since it's only done just over 3,500 kilometers. Controls down here are really easy to use. The jog wheel, we've got the volume control for the sound system, as well as the drive mode selector. There's only 2 drive modes in this car, normal and sport. big center console bin, which kind of slides backwards and forwards, and that hides a couple of USB-A ports as well. Armrest has a nice soft feel to it. The head-up display, nice and bright, not too much information. You have the local speed limit displayed as well as the speed limit of the zone you're about to go into, which is actually really quite handy. The only problem is this car does beep a lot whenever you change speed zones. It sets off a little warning tone. Again, you can go into the system and change that if you like. The instrument cluster is pretty much the same as the Mazda 6. So we've got analog dials on the side and in the middle a digital screen which pretty much just acts as an analog dial. The steering wheel, I like the steering wheel. This is pretty much a standard Mazda wheel these days. It has a really kind of sporty feel to it. It kind of looks like something out of an old sports car from the 60s maybe. I know that it looks really good in the Mazda MX-5, but yeah, it has a nice feel and lots of controls on there for the adaptive cruise control and the sound system. Leather wrap, well, leatherette anyway, with stitching. The seats in this car are cloth and they're actually really comfortable. They're yeah, quite supportive. No electric adjustment in this model though, it's all manual. For a car at this price point, I'm a little bit disappointed by, because there are cheaper cars that have electric adjustment. But the seating position, like all Mazdas, is nice and low in the cabin. It feels nice and sporty. Mazda are really good at making drivers' cars. Visibility everywhere except the C-pillar at the back there, which I spoke about before, is actually really good. I can see pretty much the front of the bonnet. Good visibility, well, actually okay visibility through the rear vision mirror, because the rear window is a little bit on the small side, but the wing mirrors are nice and big and there's blind spot monitors in there too. So the car I drove immediately before this one was a BMW M2, which has enormous brakes and you just have to touch them and the car is at a stop. So getting into the Mazda 3 is actually making me, for the very first time, say something I've never said in a car review before, and it's a terrible cliche. The brakes are a little bit mushy. You do have to kind of, comparatively anyway, compared to a BMW M2, step on them kind of hard to make the car stop. So as I mentioned before, there's only two drive modes, normal and sport. The only thing that sport really seems to do is hang on to those gears a little bit longer, making more noise. Doesn't really improve performance. This car beeps a lot, and most of it is just to alert you to speed zone changes, but then there's other beeps that go off and I actually don't know what they mean. One of the most helpful beeps though is with the rear and front cross traffic alert. We've got cameras at the front and back which are really helpful when you're parking, and there's also a virtual top-down 360 view on the center console screen as well. One of the things that Mazda has really done to improve the Mazda 3 over the last nearly 20 years that it's been around, and I owned one of the original ones way back in 2005, is cabin noise. The Mazda 3 originally had a bit of a reputation for a bit of cabin noise, and I tell you what, it's pretty much completely eliminated in the current model. It is really quiet and refined in here. Well, while we're stuck here in this lovely Saturday morning bumper-to-bumper traffic, why don't we check out the adaptive cruise control and see how that works. Set the speed to 70 k's per hour, but we're not going anywhere near that at the moment. And see how we go, keeping a good distance from the car in front of us. Oh, and the assisted steering is... yeah, that's actually really quite strong. That's actually one of the better systems I've seen. Oh, no, it's just turned itself off because it thought I wasn't holding the wheel properly. Now I think it's come back on. And we're getting a little close to the edge there. These systems, and this isn't unique to Mazda, but they're just not perfect yet. They're not 100% there. You really do need to keep an eye on them. You can't just completely relax and let the car drive for you. They do handle acceleration and braking quite well though. So with its nice interior and superior ride characteristics, the Mazda 3 probably more directly competes with the Honda Civic than it does, say, the Hyundai i30 or Kia Cerato or Toyota Corolla. It's a nicer car to drive and it just feels a bit more dynamic. but it does cost about $10,000 less than the Honda Civic. So if you're looking for a slightly more premium small car to drive, then the Mazda 3 is definitely worth a look.